welcome to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. Good evening from Swansea wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are watching Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling, insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. Today is Friday, and we've got quite a bit of news to talk about. It's going to be a fun one, that is for sure. We've got Melissa in the chat. Shout out to Melissa. And of course, we're going to preview this weekend in wrestling as well. But as I always say, I can't just talk for 45 minutes on my own. I do it for 10 minutes on Allison Analysis. And by the end of that, I'm just skipping over every other word. So I need a good panel with me, and I do have one today. Let's kick things off with a head of opinions, Anthony Ricciardi. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing all right. With the potential great weekend of wrestling, SmackDown is stacked tonight. Scott D'Amore has his Maple Leaf Pro this weekend. It should be a lot of fun talking about different wrestling.
Absolutely, it's going to be a fun one, and we potentially have a major wrestling promotion in Canada again. That will certainly be interesting, and that is certainly a promotion to keep an eye on. But also joining us, we have Jordy in the bank. How are you today, Jordy?
I'm good, mate. It's good. It's always nice to be here on a Friday night because it means I've finished my actual job for the week and I can just focus on wrestling. I can talk about wrestling. I can watch wrestling. Yeah, man. This is me in my element. And yeah, it's nice to talk about. It's nice to talk about news. I feel like quite often I end up on review shows, which I do love. I love talking about what's happening in the here and now. In terms of the shows, but I like to kind of deep dive into a couple of interesting topics as well, and we've certainly got some good ones lined up. So yeah, I'm excited.
Absolutely, it is going to be a fun show. And let's kick things off with a big news topic, right? In fact, this is kind of a continuation from the opening segment we had on Wednesday's show when we were talking about whether or not Raw should go back to 3 hours based on the negative feedback that 2 hour Raws have had the last couple of weeks, right? Well, a few days later, this morning, well, I need to get the sound effect ready, right? Because WrestleVotes, who are, of course, they're not an official news thing. They're a dirt sheet, so I'll put the dirt sheet siren on. We've got sound effects now, right? But yes,
Where'd
they're
that
not an
budget
official
come from?
source, guys. But I'm going to be honest with you. Chaos gave me the idea the other day when he was in this stream guard and he was using sound effects. I was like, why hadn't we been using these? But yeah, I mean, basically, WrestleVote said this morning that Raw and SmackDown are both going to be 3 hours starting in January. Now, it's important to emphasize out of the gate that they are an insider. They get, they are quite a reliable one, but they're still an insider. This is not an official announcement. But today we are just going to be talking about, whether or not we think it is a good idea for Raw and SmackDown to go back to back to 3 hours in the case of Raw and 3 hours in the case of SmackDown. It's a very interesting one, right? Because I think a lot of people are in agreement that Raw should go back to 3 hours, but another hour of SmackDown too. That's 6 hours of programming per week. Do people really have that much time? It's an interesting question. Now, when we took this to Instagram, we did a post on Instagram. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive very, very quickly. Everybody was thrilled about it, and I'm going to be honest, that really did surprise me because if you go back, I don't even know, like 18 months, people wanted Raw to go back to 2 hours, and now WWE TV has become so good. People are like, 3 hours twice a week? Yay, get in! But I just don't know if there's a demand for 6 hours or not, and more probably importantly, if there is a demand for 3 hours, then will that lessen the NXT viewership and the AEW viewership? I mean, WWE will only carry the NXT one, but it is an interesting question to ask. Anthony, I'm going to chuck it to you first, right?
Right.
Do you think it's a good idea for both shows to go to 3 hours?
I think this is something that a lot of fans are not considering because they're going, "Oh, I'm going to get all this great content." People were complaining when Raw was 3 hours that it was too long, and now that it's not, now they're complaining that it's not 3 hours. You have to consider the fact that quantity doesn't necessarily mean quality. It's a huge burden on that writing staff to come up with weekly TV, whether it's 2 hours or 3 hours. You're adding an additional hour or 2 hours. So it's like adding a whole nother show if you're going by the 2 hour bracket to book. I know they have a lot of talent. I get all that. I remember Triple H saying years ago, I think he gave an interview and he said, for him, the ideal amount of time on a show was 90 minutes. So roughly, a 2 hour show is roughly 90 minutes when you take out the commercials. I don't have a problem with them being 2 hours. To be perfectly honest with you, SmackDown's been 2 hours forever and a day. And a lot of times people were like, SmackDown was better than Raw, but it was the shorter show. So to me, quantity doesn't necessarily mean quality for both. At some point, they're going to get burned out if they're doing 6 hours of Raw and SmackDown and then another 2 for NXT. How long before NXT goes to 3 hours? Like at a certain point, you're going to get burnout by the writing staff, by the talent, by the audience. I think they want 3 hours because they don't have 3 hours now. But when they get 3 hours, like, why did you give me 3 hours? I don't want 3 hours. It's too long. I got to be honest. I'm enjoying getting my extra sleep with Raw when it ends at 10 instead of ending at 11. As long as you're able to keep it up, I think you kind of could do specialty episodes and make those 3. But weekly, I don't think it's a good idea, personally. I think it's going to be burnout if you do it.
That is a very fair point, and I agree. But I also agree with this comment here from Numero One Superfly. This is personally, literally my opinion, right? Numero One is saying Raw for sure should be 3 hours. As for SmackDown, I think that should stay at 2. Bang on what I think, right? If something's not broke, why try and fix it? For me, that was working well. Under Vince, of course, the 3 hours felt long. But since Triple H has taken over, Raw's been my favorite weekly show. It truly has been. And sure, some weeks SmackDown's been better, but for the most part, I have preferred Raw. And part of that, I think, is the time thing. The fact that they could, they have a bit more time to go deeper into those storylines. But that doesn't necessarily mean I want SmackDown to do the same thing. SmackDown is a slightly shorter show, a slightly faster paced show. Meanwhile, Raw's maybe a little bit slower. We got a few more comments here too. Soul saying, what could we do to make the extra hours, feel different? Well, they kind of experimented with different things over the years with that on Raw. Like they did a cruiserweight hour at one point, and a few other things as well. But honestly, again, Raw for the 3 hours of Raw the past 18 months has been doing well ratings-wise. The drops, it's gone against the general drop in television ratings, so it's been doing well to that extent, and the feedback's been very good for it as well. So I don't think they need to do anything new. I don't think they need to do anything, extravagant or anything like that. But to Anthony's point, will it be burnout? If you add another one to SmackDown, it could well be the case. CavKSK is saying you need to have a balance between giving everybody what they want and keeping them wanting more. That's a great point. Very good point indeed. 6 hours is a lot indeed. It is. And Melissa's asking, why is Raw 3 hours yet SmackDown is only 2? Because Raw traditionally was the flagship. Now you can argue SmackDown is, or now you can argue Raw is again. Now it's going to Netflix. Who knows? But I think the entire logic of the flagship needs to be longer is false in itself. Because like I said earlier on, a 2 hour show is going to feel different to a 3 hour show. So maybe they have a slightly different fan base. Jordy, I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
Well, yeah, I think, it's all very interesting. And the reason why I think it's so interesting is because we're going into an unknown territory in a sense. A lot of what is referenced so far and historically, when we look at it and we look at 3 hours, 2 hours, it's all within TV programming. With it being on Netflix, it could feel different. A 2 hour show might feel shorter. It might feel longer. I don't know how it's going to go. I completely see why you would maybe think about not doing it for 3 hours. But again, going back to the Netflix deal and going back to Anthony and myself completely, the more sleep, getting to bed at 10. When it's on Netflix, is there a reason why they couldn't air it at 7? Like, it's different ball game. You're not really competing against anything. Like, you can just go wherever the time thinks best. You look at the analytics and you look at the most engagement on socials, on internet, on all kind of platforms, and think, right, that's when our That's when our audience are the most engaged. That's when they're watching things. That's when we'll program it. It doesn't always have to be 8 till 11 anymore. It could be slightly different. And I think that's why they could potentially be looking at it. And again, it could well be a situation of why not try it out of the gates on Netflix? And if it doesn't go well, there's no shame in the sense going back, because again, they don't have that competition. They don't have to necessarily, I'm sure they will. I'm sure it's in writing, X amount of hours time slot per show. But it's a completely different platform. It's a different era of wrestling programming. And that's why I'm so interested to see it. And I think personally, if you're going to do it out of the gate on Netflix. That's when you're probably going to have your most viewership. And see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, then revert back and put SmackDown back to 2 hours. But also what has to be taken into consideration from a logistics standpoint is the roster, is the draft, and the way it was done. It was done with SmackDown not having as long, so therefore the SmackDown roster isn't as big as the Raw roster. If that is changing, you're going to have to look at adding a few into the SmackDown roster to make it a 3 hour show worthy amount of people. Not that they couldn't, you know what I mean? But I think it would be back to, if they were to run SmackDown as a 3 hour show at this point, it would almost be back to the old school way of like all that roster would have to work all the time pretty much. I don't think days off wouldn't be as easy to come by. So I think you just need to add a few more names in each division to the SmackDown roster to be able to run it 3 hours. But I don't see why they wouldn't give it a go out of the gates on Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great point. And to your point, actually, WrestleVotes did talk about that. They said the plan is to call up people from NXT before the draft, before January, so that when SmackDown goes to 3 hours, SmackDown will have a larger roster. But I do want to clear something up about this Netflix thing, because we got a couple more comments about this too. KSK is saying, on Netflix, 2 hours ad-free would be great. Raw on Netflix. So there's two things to clear up here. One, there's speculation going around that Raw can go as long as it wants on Netflix or not as long as it wants. Because that came out by a dirt sheet. It is completely false for the time being. The reason for that is they still have network contracts internationally. They've got Netflix it's going to be on Netflix in a lot of the world, but they still have several major countries, including India, which is their biggest market in the world, which, they get like 30, 50, 40 million views a week. It's something really, really high. That's not going to Netflix. So they still have those logistics to think about. They'll still have to follow certain times. Now, they could change it from 2 to 3 or whatever, right? Like they have done. But I don't think the idea of them going, 2 hours and 20 minutes, I don't think that would necessarily be possible unless they filled the rest of it with content for those countries. I guess that would be. But the other thing is there will be adverts. It'll work the same way as Peacock does for pay-per-views. If you've got, a higher tier, presumably you'll see WWE ads, right? That's my guess. But the lower tiers will see ads. That's already confirmed. And internationally, of course, there will still be ads as well. So the entire ad-free talk which is going around is you might maybe get less ads during matches or something. But in terms of during the actual show, those gaps where there's ad breaks, there'll still be gaps for ad breaks.
I wouldn't want it to be ad-free personally. I think that is something like, I need them gaps. I need to go to the toilet. I need to go grab some food. Like these things happen. And it's totally in match. I would appreciate less, but I think for it to go completely ad-free, it's not unrealistic to a sense business-wise, but I just think as well, logistically, people would be like, I'm stuck to my seat now. I don't like it.
If it's anything like, obviously, the pay-per-views on Peacock, they don't show the ads until the match is over. So there's no break during the match. So I'm kind of hoping it's the same thing with Netflix, where it's like this match or the segment, and then you show your little ad, and then you pick up. So there's no picture-in-picture. There's no break in the match. Which is,
I think for the higher tier that'll be the case, but not.
No, I don't even have the highest tier on Peacock, and I don't have.
No, it's different because that's not an international deal, so they've got to take adverts. I think it's like every 15 minutes, like on the dot, regardless, and they're still in those deals, and then another X amount of years.
So, do you think they'll get picture-in-picture, and then like other people won't? Like, you think that's how they'll work it?
My guess. I mean, maybe they will just do, to your point. Everybody on Netflix doesn't get as many ads. My personal prediction is that the lower tier will have ads like normal. The higher tier won't have ads during matches, but will have WWE related ads in between matches. That's my prediction.
That would be my guess. That's where I'm thinking they're going to go with it.
We should be able to get a group deal with Netflix where we can all pay a little bit less and all on behalf of Wrestling Republic, and then we'll cover it forever.
They hate password sharing. They absolutely hate
no
it.
Password sharing. We'll just like a bundle. So it's like, we'll get 12 subscriptions to the WWE bit, and then we can all just chip in and pay. Netflix, if you're watching.
I remember when I was in uni last year, and I was home for like 7 months of the year, pretty much. So, like, I technically lived at home more than I did in uni. But if I went to uni, I couldn't use the Netflix. The Netflix would be you're in a different location. And I'd be like, what? And it allowed me for like 2 weeks max. And it's like, well, okay, you're clearly not on holiday, so you can't use it.
Nothing beats a buddy of mine. This is a side thing. He sent me a message. He was on vacation somewhere out of the country, and he was watching the DC show Titans on Netflix. And he goes, I can't find it. When he got back, I'm like, yeah, because in the States, it's not on Netflix. It's only international. He's like, I didn't finish the season. I was like, I'll tell you.
VPN.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to get a NordVPN sponsor or something, aren't we? Chad is saying, please keep Raw 2 hours. I think just the people here at Wrestling Republic the only ones who want Raw 2 hours.
Honestly,
bro, they're just sleepy. Everyone's just sleepy.
We all just enjoy the sleep.
It's not for me. I think right now you can call it teething problems. It's not been that long, but I think Raw is missing that extra hour for sure. I'm not missing the extra hour sleep for sure from a selfish perspective, but like that's why I said like I don't think messing with the running time of Raw is realistic, but I just wonder if they would consider moving it 7 till 10 rather than 8 till 11, because that extra hour is a lot for everyone.
And
they're not. You don't have programming saying, "Oh no, we've got to deal with this show." They're 7 till 8.
No, I know the issue. The issue is Pacific time, isn't it? They won't be back from work yet.
It'd be 4 o'clock then. But the other thing is like people getting out of work. Some people don't get out till 6. I'm just saying, to get to an arena in an hour and get something to eat, like that's why I don't think they'll do 7. But they do it for pay-per-views. But again, that's the weekend, so it's I don't know.
Oh yeah, of course.
It'd be tricky.
Getting people to stadiums.
Yeah, it would be. What we need to happen is, I swear there was a thing before, Jordy, that this is correct. I'm right in saying this, right, Anthony? That the US are getting rid of the clocks changing. Like
they've talked about that, but nothing. As far as I know, nothing is official. They've kicked that around. There's certain there's certain places that
hit the siren.
The siren's coming back out.
You played that a few more times. It sounds like Jaws.
I thought you just had a cruise ship parked outside.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Basically, there was. I know this was properly in the news. I think Canada's done it. And I thought America passed it. Maybe I'm wrong.
There's certain places that don't. But nobody understands why they do it. To this day, no one.
Farmers.
Kids going to school.
That's a rumor. I will send both of you. John Oliver does a thing about the clock changing. He airs it every year, and he dispels all the rumors. And those are 2 of them.
That in the UK, that is the case. It was for the kids in Scotland.
Yeah.
But
it's all Soul. It's only Soul's fault.
But so basically, the UK is as of now, is against the idea of clock changing. So Jordy, we might have Raw at 12 for us. And SmackDown at 12 for half the year if this does happen, right? So we need to, we need to be calling Congress in the States, trying to get that through, make sure the clocks stop changing. Stop the clocks.
Can I just tell you, as an American watching this, that you guys are excited that your show will now be on at midnight is just hysterical to me. I'm sorry.
It's a joke, mate. I'm telling you, I'm flying over. I'm going to live there. I'm just going to set up a tent if I have to, because I miss out on too much sleep because I live in the UK and I ain't changing.
Nothing would be funnier if Jordy gets asked by Customs, why are you moving? Raw's on at an unreasonable time.
Yeah, wrestling's on at an unreasonable hour in the UK. And then we're like, well, that's enough for me, brother.
Oh gosh, well there we are then. That's what we need to happen. We have Gaffy's case saying that's an interesting point, and that as much as he wants to watch more Raw, he's enjoying the extra hour. Oh, well, fair enough then. Another person who agrees. Our comments in general don't like it. I did a take, right, and people love to disagree with me on Reels, and I did a long take about it, and I was shocked. Everyone agreed, and I'm like, what is going on here? People are agreeing with me. This is a new feeling. Yeah, Shard saying that he's got to wake up at 4:30 every morning.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what time it finishes for me, Shard, when it's 3 hours. Just listen, bro, it's not hard. It's 50-50. It stinks.
This man is literally considering uprooting his entire life and moving here just to be reasonable about the wrestling hours.
Oh, I'm going to post as a quote to the Instagram. Jordy in the band. I'm considering moving to America just so I can watch Raw at a reasonable time. KSK also says 2 hours gets over at 7:30 in the morning right now, so it helps me get to work timely. Oh, okay, fair enough.
His employers will approve.
Chris Leclerc says, I don't need Raw and SmackDown 3 hours. I agree. Raw, yes. SmackDown, no. Purpose of visit, sleep. But now let's move on to the next one, shall we? Let's talk about Netflix behind the scenes WWE show, because there's nothing dirt sheet related about this. This is now official. Nick Khan has announced it. The Netflix are going to be doing a behind the scenes WWE docu-series. And really interestingly about this, it's going to be similar to the Formula One one. So it's not going to be like Total Divas or the AEW one, where it's kind of a reality TV-based show. This seems to be a legit look behind the scenes, and that's going to be fascinating. Are we going to see more, about the creative process than we've ever seen before? Here in the UK, we have these football documentaries, you guys would call it soccer, called All or Nothing, and they literally, they show, the manager's team talks, all of that, which before you'd never, ever see. So are we going to see that for WWE? It would be crazy if we get an insight into creative meetings, and I would love it. But not everybody is happy about this, because some people are saying it could, expose the business as even more fake and stuff like that. I mean, I think everybody knows at this point, but I think people are thinking,
Spoiler
maybe
alert.
we'll... Yeah, get the siren on again.
How many documentaries have we seen behind the scenes? The WrestleMania one, which is behind. We all know it's scripted. This is not new.
Exactly. Well, exactly. But I think maybe it's. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. I agree with you, Anthony. But maybe it's the part of, if we're seeing the creative meetings, then maybe people who thought, well, it's it's predetermined, but maybe there's some reality to it. It's actually all. My cat's now crying. She's clearly not a fan of this idea.
I thought it was Jordy, a siren.
Are you a fan?
I am, in a sense. I will play devil's advocate first, because I will say one of the, again, most respected football managers, Jurgen Klopp, said if they ever make a fly on the wall documentary at Liverpool, he'll be out of there. I think there's an element of, I reckon if we ever get The Undertaker, dead man, if you ever fancy coming on the show, you're welcome, I reckon. But if we ever get The Undertaker on, I reckon he wouldn't like this. I think there's an old school, I bet even Cody Rhodes is a bit, I don't know, it's kind of against the old way of things, but it's very much in the new way of things. And I think it's a great way of getting people who are maybe on that fence, are semi-interested. They were once interested, for example. I'll tell you a perfect story about myself. Had a big interest in golf when I was younger, kind of just in and out of it, but then I watched Full Swing on Netflix, and I've really, really enjoyed that behind the scenes look. A narrative was created in a sense, and because I don't keep up with golf, and they were showing me the Masters and things like that, I didn't know who was going to win, and it was like they can create a film and a documentary film like narrative, make it more dramatic, and I just think the WWE is a perfect kind of like match made in heaven for that, because they tell a story. That is what they do. And getting people like, which is a maybe say unfortunate circumstance with obviously the Vince doc. I had friends that again had once had a interest in wrestling. They watched it, and I said to them, "Are you going to watch it when it's on Netflix? Are you going to watch WWE now?" And they were like, "Yeah, we'll probably. Well, I'll watch WrestleMania." And I think so. They bring out another documentary about a Cody Rhodes, about a Roman Reigns, about all these kind of figures, CM Punk. People will watch that, and then it's just so easy to then click on to Raw the following Monday, or to just click on the last episode of Raw, or to watch the next PLE. And I just think it's another fantastic way to get them people who are just on the fence to just slip back over and become like full-time wrestling fans again. So yeah, I do think it's a match made in heaven, despite maybe being against the old way of things.
Yeah, well, maybe those oldies are gonna just have to get on with the new era. But we've got a few comments here. Cap JSK is saying, like Drive to Survive, exactly like that. In fact, Mark Shapiro literally compared it to that a couple of years ago when he was hinting at them doing. Well, I say hinting. He basically confirmed it then, but he said they were in talks. But now Nick Khan has confirmed it. Shard saying kayfabe has been dead since social media. I mean, even before then, but especially since social media, you are right. Number one Superfly says, as long as they don't show the wrestlers that are in a feud, not show. I mean, they will. That's the thing. They 100% will show the wrestlers who are feuding together, and I think that is the issue some people have. We will, like, if it was being filmed right now, we'd see, Drew McIntyre and CM Punk talking about what they're going to do in the Hell in a Cell match.
You just got to leave it a bit, though. Leave it a bit. Like,
I don't have an issue if they treat this like WWE 24 or 365, where it's after the fact. Which you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it will be. It will be.
So I mean, if you remember, it was in the late '90s they did Beyond the Mat, and it was Foley and Rock talking about their I Quit match before. You saw all that stuff. So we've seen this stuff before, where they're discussing ideas. But I loved 365. I loved 24 when they did it, because I love the behind the scenes stuff, because I find that just as interesting as the stuff on
getting to know the people.
And right. that's why like the autobiographies or the documentaries or kayfabe commentaries, things that talked about stuff and the inner workings, I love that stuff. So I think that is, if you're doing something along those lines on Netflix, I'm definitely on board, because I love finding out about stuff I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. I am hyped for this, but something I'm also hyped about every single time I watch it is Progress Wrestling. So, of course, I like Demand Progress. Now, if you don't know what Demand Progress Plus is, basically they got all the Progress Wrestling chapters, all the Progress Wrestling shows they've ever done. They put it on this streaming platform. It's a really good streaming platform, really user-friendly. I say it every time, but it's true. It is my favorite wrestling streaming platform, and I mean that. It's also got Defy Wrestling on it, TNT Extreme Wrestling, and more. It is truly just a great platform. Tons of wrestling. You can also put it on, different speeds too. You guys know me. I love my 2x speeds for things. So, when I see that, I absolutely adore it. But yeah, if you guys want to check it out, then use code WatchProgress1, because you get 50% off your first month on Demand Progress Plus, the home of Progress, Defy, and more. But now let's move on. We got Daily Jaden saying, lol, such thick accent. Well, it depends, we have got viewers from all over the world. Your accent might be thick to us, but yeah, no, my accent there very much is very Welsh. But apart from in Wales, they say it sounds English. It's a very bizarre situation.
Can't win, mate.
But, pardon?
You can't win.
I know. I really can't. In Wales, they always say, because obviously I was born in England, I sounded English, and I go to uni and they're like, what? You are like the most Welsh person ever. But now let's talk about the Hurt Syndicate, because that is officially their name. It was rumored, and it is now official. MVP has confirmed it, right? But a lot of people presume, right? We're guessing that Bobby Lashley is going to be coming to AEW. He's a free agent. We know that is also official. We can only put, 2 and 2 together and think, hey, Bobby Lashley's coming over and joining Shelton and MVP. And that then leads to the bigger question. Well, Cedric Alexander, he's in WWE. So who is going to replace him in this group? Anthony, I'd love to get your prediction on this one.
Yeah, I believe the name was confirmed when it was on Shelton's trunks on Wednesday. I think that's how the name technically got confirmed. This is an interesting thing because obviously you have somebody like Leo Rush who fought Shelton this week. We know he has ties to Bobby. He was on screen. He was the hype man, the annoying hype man that Bobby had. The logical guess to me is probably Ricochet, because he probably needs it the most. Because that man, I don't think he can cut a good promo. He can't. He needs a mouthpiece. MVP's there. I think he'd be a logical one. And if they, whether he was a single star under MVP's thing or even in tags with Shelton, I think he could make a really good tag partner for Shelton if they went that route. But you could, if you were bringing in a woman, it probably would be Mercedes. Mercedes seems to fit that whole thing, and I probably would. I'd probably add Ricochet, and I would probably add Mercedes to the group if you were making it a full on group. Then you have about 5 members, give or take. You can kind of run with. What happens to Camille? I don't know if Camille would stay with her. I mean, they could bring her in too, but yeah, I think Ricochet would be the logical choice. I don't want to be disrespectful that it's replacing Cedric, but to fill that vacant void, I think Ricochet is the logical one.
Yeah, I completely and utterly agree with you, Anthony. I mean, I do think he'd be fine as a singles competitor, but I do think he risks getting lost in a company with a variety of phenomenal singles competitors. Whereas if he's in this faction, right, and they just keep it at Shelton Benjamin, Ricochet, and Bobby Lashley alongside MVP, I think that could go down in history. I think that could be a top faction.
You just need to have a group to go against them. That's the problem. Like
well, they have tons of them, but they're all heels.
Yeah, but even like the ones you could put them up against, you like if you put them against Dark Order, that's the Job Squad. Like, come on, stop. Like you don't.
Yeah, but they have tons of heel factions if they turn them face.
I know, but like the group is technically a heel group, is it not? The Hurt Syndicate is.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the Hurt Business, because they are very much being like heels, but the Hurt Business was a heel faction which multiple times feuded with heels. Mm-hmm. And they'd be over as the heels because, people love them. So they were like, well, okay, well, they're bad guys, but they're not like super bad guys. And people like them. So, okay, let's chuck them against the heel and it's clear they're the face. Maybe that could work.
It's a very difficult situation for them because they got the Combat Club. They have whatever the Bucks group is. Like there are too many factions that are trying
to
take
Callis family too.
Oh yeah, he just traded for people, so maybe.
And they all wear black, and they all say they're taking over the company. They're 4 factions in 4 consecutive segments this week on Dynamite, saying the same thing.
Listen, with so many people trying to take over the company, you would think somebody would be fearing for their lives.
Oh gosh, well let's have a look here. The person to replace Cedric is either Keith Lee, number 1 Superfly says, Lee Moriarty, yes, please. Actually, I don't even care. I said only Ricochet. If you can chuck Lee Moriarty in there, do that because he's a heck of a talent and he would fit in there like a glove, right? That'd be perfect. And he's massively underutilized. Powerhouse Hobbs or even Mercedes. I don't think Mercedes Moné needs it, to be honest with you. Powerhouse Hobbs, perhaps, but he's been in so many factions now. Keith Lee, well, we don't really know about, but I love the Lee Moriarty shout. I really, really do. Shard is saying EJ Nduka is a young wrestler who would be cool. I've not seen much of him, but I need to check him out. That is for sure. What about Shane Taylor Promotions?
Oh, that's it. That's another. That's technically another group. Technically, if that's still a thing, I don't know. I don't have the paywall, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's what. To Shard's point, and that's what Lee Moriarty is in. But I mean, the fact is, he's not doing anything that even I know about. He's just on Ring of Honor and sometimes Collision from time to time. But now let's move on and let's talk about this weekend in professional wrestling, right? Because it is a big one. Tonight on SmackDown, we have got, as always, my browser is shut down, but I think I can actually just remember it this week. We've got Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso, who are going to be appearing Kevin Owens has, of course, given WWE an ultimatum, right? He said if they don't release the tape that he sent them tonight on SmackDown, well, then he's going to release it himself on social media tonight. And not only that, but we have the 7th match with Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes. That one is going to be an absolute banger. I am very, very excited for it indeed. I don't think I'm missing anything else, am I?
Yes, well, this would be a spoiler, but there's a potential mystery tag team that arriving tonight.
Yes. There's a mystery tag team going against Los Garza, of course, as well. That one is going to be a really, really interesting one, that is for sure. And I'm trying to get up the other show which we're talking about, the card for the other show, and I do have it here now. So there is not only SmackDown this weekend, we also have Maple Leaf Pro, as we talked about in the intro to this show. It's a new promotion started by, a revival of an old promotion started by Scott D'Amore. And of course, he was fired from Impact earlier this year. We all know that. But he has got his first card this week. And you've got to be joking me. It's closed down again. Well, you know what? Anthony, do you know the card by any chance?
I off the top of my head, I don't know all the matches on the card, but I am more than happy to, while I'm trying to look it up, I am more than happy to talk about at least one of the matches that I'm very interested in. The first night, Saturday, I don't know if this is the main event or not, but Mike Bailey is taking on AEW's Takeshita. I think it is a title match too, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'm interested in that. The former Jinder Mahal will be taking on Bully Ray in a tables match. Giselle Shaw is taking on Yamashita. I'm presuming I'm pronouncing that correct. Rahan Raja, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, is taking on Jake something, and then there's some other tag matches throughout the show. And then also there's a Sunday night card, which I do not have in front of me. But Mauro Ronaldo is being brought in as the official commentator for the promotion. And then Don Callis, I think, is his broadcast partner, at least for this weekend. So it's very interesting to see what Scott D'Amore is doing with his new promotion. I think all eyes are on Scott to see what, he's had great relationships with multiple companies. I think, he had a lot of momentum behind him with the relaunch of TNA, and it was very shocking when he was shown the door. So I think everyone's very interested in seeing what impact he's going to have in the business, and whether or not, does Maple Leaf continue, or is he doing it temporarily before somebody picks him up? There's a lot of questions, but I think it's going to be an unbelievable 2 shows, because I think Scott really wants to show the world he's got something to show.
Absolutely. And Cav KSK is asking, where can we watch it? I believe on Fight TV.
Right? Yes. It's going to be Fight. He did give an interview with Chris Van Vliet, and he was asked about it. He said, right now that there's only the scheduled the 2 shows. In 2025, his plan is to announce something else, whether it's a weekly TV thing with Fight or something else, continue on. But for now, it's just these 2. This is a soft launch, and then in 2025, that's his intention. At least that's what he said in the interview.
Well, I do have the full card for both nights, right? Okay. So we've got the 4-way tag team match. I'm not going to say all the teams. We got Yamashita versus Giselle Shaw. We've got a 6-man tag match with El Phantasmo, Josh Alexander, and Stu Grayson versus Alex Zane, Rocky Romero, and Trevor Lee. Yes, please. A 4-way match with Kylie Ray taking on JC Luck, Oro Tevez, and Taylor Rising. A tables match between Bully Ray and Raj Desi, with the PWA Champions Grail title match between Jake Something and Rohan Raja, and a singles match between Mike Bailey and Konosuke Takeshita. Then on night 2, we've got Classy Ali versus El Reverso for the Qatar title. We have a scramble match with Stu Grayson, Mike Rollins, Trevor Lee, Jake Something, Sheldon Jean, and Alex Zane. And we've got a singles match between El Phantasmo and Mike Bailey. I'm looking forward to that. And the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship will be on the line as Athena defends against Giselle Shaw. That could be a good one. But something else which will also be good is the AEW International title match. As Anthony said earlier on, Konosuke Takeshita versus Josh Alexander. Yes, please. That is just absolutely fantastic. Shard saying that as well. Takeshita defending the international belt, and Athena defending the Ring of Honor one as well. But Jordy, let's talk about SmackDown for a second, shall we? What are you excited for on the blue brand tonight?
Look, I changed my lights blue. I'm excited for. I'm loving this Kevin Owens thing, man. I really am. Of course, I'm excited. I'm excited that Roman's back, isn't he? He's going to be on the show.
Yes, him and Jimmy are both going to be there, and we'll talk to.
Yeah, I thought so. I'm loving Roman being a fifth. I'm loving him being around. We're in October now, so go back 6 months and you probably will hear me hoping and praying for Roman Reigns' demise and wanting him to lose at WrestleMania. But my point was, I have no problem with Roman being a champion. I have no problem with Roman being around. I have a problem with when he disappears. So I'm happy anytime Roman's around. I'm loving what Jimmy's doing. I'm eagerly anticipating the return of Paul Heyman. I don't know how, I don't know when it'll be, but I think it'll be a big deal. So I don't think it's maybe going to be tonight, but who knows? I could be wrong. But the Kevin Owens thing, I said it to you guys in the chat. If somewhere down the line, somehow people want it, we see a Cody Rhodes Homelander storyline go on, there is no better Billy Butcher than Kevin Owens. And if that is them starting to lay the groundwork of that now, then I'm all for it. I love the whole being silenced by the company, the way they cut his mic off and stuff last week. It's just something that we've not really seen. It's quite innovative. It's quite inventive. I'm just excited, and I don't think there's anyone better than Kevin to do it. I don't know who's in the right, who's in the wrong. I think it's probably Randy in the wrong, but I could be wrong about this. So, they're the two things I'm most excited for.
Yeah, I mean, Kafka's case, and like I said before, heel KO is best for business. I do agree, but a lot of people, and it's even more after, this past week, think that maybe KO isn't the bad guy in this, and maybe Randy Orton lied, or some lie or something, and that's what they're trying to hide.
I think, it's kind of funny, and I think I said this on a show. The KO heel turn reminds me a lot of the Drew McIntyre one because it's not the typical heel turn. It's a turn that the audience can go, I understand his motives. Mm-hmm. I understand why he feels this way, and it's different. The way they're presenting him reminds me a lot of Kevin Owens when he was in Ring of Honor as Kevin Steen, and he was feuding both on and off screen with Jim Cornette. And he was the black sheep that Jim Cornette didn't want him there, and he was being silenced. That's what it reminds me of, and that is pure great Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, whatever you want to call him. That's where he's at his peak.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you, Jordy. I am loving this storyline. I think a lot of people are as well, but we will have to wait and see what happens. I'll quickly answer this comment. What happened to Cedric Alexander? He's still around. He's in NXT right now, isn't he?
Yes, and I believe he signed an extension back in April or something like that.
He did.
He'll be there a while unless they release him.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But that does bring us to the end of the show. Thank you to everybody who watched and commented. We really do appreciate it. Thank you to Anthony and thank you to Jordy for joining me here today. We will be back the same time tomorrow, same time, same place to talk a little bit of Friday Night SmackDown. We hope to see you guys there. Have a great Friday night. Pa, 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 pa.